Hey, you can keep it on. Okay, welcome to our slightly delayed 6:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:20 p.m. Mountain Time video webcast from Mountain Connect here in Keystone, Colorado. I have not one, not two, but three Washington wireless policy experts who will be speaking to me for just a few minutes here, and they are from left to right. Now your name tags are off. I don't. Steve, just introduce yourself.
Hi, Steve Coran. I'm with Lerman Center, and I do legal work for the Wireless Internet Service Providers Association.
Okay, so the WISPs are a very important component that may not always be remembered in the equation. And Jonathan Adelstein, formerly of FCC fame, and now, Jonathan, tell us about your trade association and your new organization's name.
Well, now I'm CEO of the Wireless Infrastructure Association, formerly PCIA. And we represent the carriers, infrastructure owners, and all the companies that build wireless networks.
Okay, thanks Jonathan for being here. And Michael Calabrese. Michael, tell us about the latest work you've been doing in the wireless policy space.
Right, so I'm at the Open Technology Institute at New America. I direct the Wireless Future Project. We focus on spectrum reform, mobile broadband, trying to open up more airwaves for to feed the beast, as Jonathan just talked about in his event.
Getting more wireless out
demand.
there. Yeah. So let me just turn it to any of you three. We've had a lot of discussion here about fiber. There's also been a lot of discussion about wireless. What would you say are the top two issues from a practitioner perspective? What needs to be focused on to make sure that we get the wireless spectrum we need? And let's start with you, Steve.
I'll give you one, and that is enabling rural broadband deployment to continue to proliferate so that folks who are not in cities can get the same benefits of those everywhere else. And this is manifest in things like putting more spectrum out there for tools for WISPs to use. It's wireless infrastructure and getting access to that on streamlined terms, and it's taking advantage of new spectrum management techniques such as spectrum access systems.
Okay, thanks a lot. Jonathan, you just concluded a presentation. You talked about the densification of the cellular network. Could you just summarize what that means and maybe pivot from that to what your priorities are?
Well, densification is a great way that carriers are now trying to take advantage of the spectrum they have to get more throughput on existing frequencies. You could put more cell sites in and get more efficient use of existing spectrum. The problem is there isn't enough spectrum right now to go around. I think the FCC is doing what it can, the administration is doing what it can, but there isn't enough spectrum available. There isn't enough in the pipeline. I don't think that people are moving fast enough given the urgency. But during this crunch, what I call the wireless data crunch, we need to continue to feed the beast and make sure that there is enough data to deal with all the consumer demands and business demands so the economy can grow. Densification is a key way to do that. So our priorities in terms of getting that done are removing regulatory obstacles so that localities allow for uses of the rights of way in responsible fashions, that they allow for the development of these networks and the backhaul that's required. And of course the FCC needs to make sure that there's available spectrum not only for the systems themselves, but for backhaul as well. And they're looking at that on Spectrum Frontiers above 24 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz and other bands.
And in your session, you did speak a little bit about some of the tensions between wireless providers and local governments and some of the issues that have come up there. Could you speak briefly to those, Jonathan?
Well, we try to work in partnership with localities to the degree that they're reasonable, but sometimes we run into unreasonable obstacles where people think that they don't need a facility in order to get the wireless broadband that their constituents demand. I think increasingly localities are getting it because they use these devices for video. They see what their kids are doing, and they're getting behind our efforts to open up rights of way, to open up all of their rules so they don't hold up wireless broadband deployment in their communities. Mm-hmm. They understand that if they stand in the way, their communities could lose out on all the benefits of wireless broadband. It's not just watching a video, but it's economic development, it's healthcare, it's education, ultimately jobs.
Right. Michael, feel free to comment on the things you think are important, but obviously unlicensed is one of the issues I know you've championed in the past. Tell us where the state of unlicensed is these days.
Right. Well, and with respect really to the same topic about densification and making wireless broadband faster and more affordable for everyone. There's two proceedings that Steve and I covered actually in our separate session on new waves in spectrum policy. One is which is a really historic proceeding the Commission just finalized but needs to be implemented, the Citizens Broadband radio service at 3.5 gigahertz, which is going to involve dynamic spectrum sharing, creating a new framework where you can have both licensing and unlicensed in the same band to make the greatest use of what's now a largely unused Navy radar band, and the other is opening up the 5 gigahertz band for gigabit fast Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is carrying roughly 80% of the mobile device data traffic, and so the historic traditional 2.4 gigahertz band is congested. We need not only more unlicensed but wider channels for licensed, and that's where that'll go.
Now, it sounds exciting. What are the megahertz for that citizens broadband
That's
effort?
150 150 megahertz of spectrum, about half and half between priority access licensing, which will be by auction, and then general authorized access, which is opportunistic, essentially unlicensed, but you need to register your device.
Okay, last question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you for the future of wireless broadband?
I think we can all say we're here to make Spectrum great again, but it's great now. We just want to make it greater. I would say on the whole, sorry about that. So on the whole, that I think the future is bright. I think a lot of the spectrum management techniques is not just creating more spectrum, but taking the existing spectrum and making it more efficient and more viable and more usable. And I'm really excited about the way that we're going to be seeing spectrum allocated and used in the future.
Great, Jonathan.
As another candidate might say, wireless already is great,
right?
And it's only getting greater. The demands, though, are expensive and costly. So getting this network built to keep up with these incredible demands is really challenging, and we need to remove any resistance, any delays, any barriers to getting these networks built out quickly.
Michael.
Yeah, it's 9 plus on optimism, but that assumes that we keep heading in the same direction with both more licensed, more unlicensed, and particularly dynamic sharing of these underutilized federal and other bands.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. This will be posted on broadbandbreakfast.com, and please stay tuned for more from beautiful Keystone, Colorado, the future of wireless policy. Thank you.